Hi friends, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel. So a lot of green in the market today, and hopefully your day is going well. I want to go through the headlines, share my thoughts and gears as well. So first, S&P 500 notches its best day since 2022 as Wall Street claws its way back from Monday rout. And I told you guys about this yesterday. We'll probably get some either big moves to the upside or downside today, depending on the jobs data. Jobs data came in good, and essentially we had this massive move, right? Since 2022, kind of move. And I think we get more jobs data tomorrow. It's like, how many jobs are we adding? And we'll see how the market responds. Essentially what we're doing, we're trying to figure out and assess, are we going into recession or not? And how will the Fed respond? At the moment, the last time I checked this, I heard that maybe we're looking at the data and we're saying, okay, maybe the Fed is only going to cut 25 basis points in September. Before, people were like, oh my God, you got to do 50, or oh my God, you got to do emergency rate cut now. Markets were kind of freaking out, but the jobs data came again a little bit better than expected, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. However, we are having change in forecasts and what the banks are saying in terms of recession risk. So this is the headlines here. JP Morgan raises 2024 recession odds to 35%. My understanding is, so that's towards the end of the year, 35% chance of recession. It's kind of like talking about the weather, right? And then by 2025, the end, they're saying 45% chance of recession. So next year, a little bit higher chance. Goldman's raising their odds of recession from 15 to 25%. So, you know, the odds are increased a bit, but I always say the same thing to you guys. Regardless of what the national numbers say, if you're struggling at your work or you have people that you know are struggling and you have to help them out, right? It's already here for you, and you guys already know it's like your particular situation. However, there is some national data which I think is worth mentioning, and this sort of points to how the consumer is doing, because remember, the USA is a consumer-based economy. So this was actually, I'll read the headline here, average consumer now carries $6,329 in credit card debt. People are stretched, expert says. And again, that's about, what, $6,300 in credit card debt is the average person. Some may be more, some may be less. And so depending on your situation, you can kind of gauge where you are compared to the average person. It's not necessarily people are going out and, you know, and just buying, you know, new shoes every day. This is basically your basic costs, like keeping up with that. And I keep telling you guys, like, the food and energy costs are really eating into people's paycheck. And unfortunately for some people, they have a combination of they're using their credit cards to say, just go to the grocery store and buy food. And then plus you have interest rates are elevated, so that just keeps adding on and compounding, unfortunately, for those people. And moreover, we got this as well. Headline, Delinquencies Rise as Household Debt Hits Record High, right? And you're looking at mortgage delinquency, auto loan delinquency, right? Credit card delinquency, those things are going up. And unfortunately, this is just how it is if you lose your job, right? Because we can see that in the unemployment numbers. You fall behind on your payments and you get these delinquencies. And I think we measure delinquencies as being like 90 days without making a payment. And we'll keep an eye on that. But you know, I know there are people out there struggling. You can see it in the numbers, and that's why I always say, regardless of, you know, whether or not the government officially says, you know, hey, we're in recession, you're going to know that your situation, right? Because you know, and you're going to also be hearing rumblings around people around you. So that's why I say these days, just be cautious. You know, it is, I know how it is. It's easy to get caught up in the social media hype of like, hey, I got to keep up with my neighbors and all these things, but you don't know what your neighbors are up to, right? Maybe your neighbors have like $12,000 in credit card debt or whatever. The average is $6,000, but maybe they got $12,000, and you know, you don't necessarily want to follow your neighbors just to keep up with that. So always take care of yourself first, and don't worry about what other people think. Here's the other headline too, and going more into companies and sort of like what they're up to. This is an interesting one. Apple makes further App Store changes in bid to avoid EU fines. And guys, we just got a ruling in the USA where the government's like, yo, Google, you've got a monopoly, cut it out. That was the setting the search engine as default on certain phones, right? Google being the search. The Apple EU one we talked for a while. It's basically what it is Apple is saying, yo, this is our App Store, and if you put an App Store or an app on our App Store, you have to do payments through our app, right? So for example, if you want to buy a game like on Steam, or say you want to buy, you know, music from whatever, you know, company that the app is, or say you want to, you know, buy whatever costume for your character if you're playing a game, they want you to do that in app, and so then Apple can take a cut of that. Some companies are like, hey, what you could do instead is we'll give you a link. You can go to our website. You can buy, you know, whatever points or stars, and then you enter a code, and then we'll go ahead and process the credit to your account. You guys know what I'm saying? So it's basically circumventing Apple's payment system, and Apple was pretty ticked off by that. But then the EU is saying, well, Apple, you got to let people do that. And this is the challenge then for companies like, say, like an Apple, is you probably have to comply with EU if you want to keep your app on the store there. And this is actually something that other companies, I think Google's going to face this one as well. Just more tech crackdowns. Europe's a bit stricter than the US on these. We talk about stuff many times on the channel. It just depends on how the government wants to enforce said things. Now, depending on your political affiliation or your views on this thing, people say, well, we shouldn't regulate because then we're punishing innovative companies like Apple, right? That would be the argument for that. And then the other side would say, well, we definitely should regulate because companies like Apple are monopolizing and hurting other companies, right? Because they're saying, hey, you other companies, you have to process payments through us. So Apple's going to comply with the EU for now. And actually, I was talking about that as well as if you guys have been following the channel, you'll know this the last couple of days. Elon Musk has been tweeting all sorts of crazy stuff and fake news and stuff like that has been spreading on his platform X. And this is regards to the UK situation. And like these kind of policies that they have in various countries around the world really do matter to tech companies and to social media companies, et cetera, because it affects the way we do business and it affects sort of the information that we see. So I'm for regulation, so you already know my opinion on that kind of stuff, but I understand the argument for people who are against regulation, right? So I'm just laying this out, sort of what's going on, and keep an eye on this stuff because this certainly affects the bottom line for companies, right? Then ultimately bleeds into stocks because stocks should be, I say should be, because it's not always the case, but they should be connected to how much money a company earns, basically. So Apple also, too, is introducing new products. This is kind of an interesting one for those of you who follow Apple. Apple's Mac Mini with M4 chip will be its smallest computer ever. And this is actually a big deal. It was saying here that this was going to maybe announced this fall, and then obviously maybe because you hear rumors, you guys know how this stuff is. And then I think they're even talking about redesigning the MacBook even. I saw a little bit of that, but and even like maybe the Mac Pro, but we'll see. These things can get delayed. But a new Mac Mini and like how small it's going to get would be pretty cool if they end up with a good marketing campaign for that. We actually have a Mac Mini. We have a couple of Mac computers. I like Apple, so I'm always interested in the kind of products that they have. And one of the things that's interesting, I forgot to mention it a couple of videos ago, but there was a talk like who is still at Apple. Because basically, Steve Jobs is gone, and then Johnny Ive is also gone. So you would remember these guys if you've been following the Apple story. But basically, you have a younger group of people there that weren't necessarily trained by Jobs or Ive. So just a new culture at Apple, and do they have the sort of stable of new designers and new engineers that can come in and basically lead the market again? And we'll see. This was something that Apple was also really good at before, is they come up with some cool products and some cool marketing campaigns. I always refer to this one because I always thought it was a great campaign, was when the MacBook Air first came out, and Jobs brought out this really thin computer, and he put it in an envelope, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know you could put a computer in like a envelope like that. So if the Mac Mini comes in and is like ridiculously small, it might be a good product. I think they're going to price that thing around $600, something like that. So we'll see. I don't work for Apple. I just like Apple products. But then the key is, like, for any company, when they bring out new products, are the consumers going to be there, right? And so that's sort of why we're tracking unemployment. We're also tracking sort of where interest rates are, because so then is Apple going to give free financing for these things, or do people have to borrow money to buy said things, et cetera, right? Are they going to put in a credit card? So that's why you track all these things. What are consumers doing? What are companies doing, et cetera? We also have this headline: private equity builds 722 billion war chest and hunt for deals. And you're gonna see a lot of this too. So remember, Warren Buffett's building up cash. So you see here this news of the private equity is building up cash. Is like when you see these kind of headlines, it means that people are waiting for deals, right? So this is why even if like there's a bad crash or whatever, be it real estate market, residential real estate, or commercial real estate, or even like stock market crash, there's always gonna be some out there willing to buy at some level. So some things, if they have inherent value, they will still have value, right? It's a real business. It generates real profits, et cetera. Someone's going to come in and buy it, right? And this also happens too if like there's poor leadership decisions and then people lose faith in said company, the stock drops in value. There'll be someone come in, there'll be like an activist investor say, yo, I'm going to turn this ship around, hire a new CEO and get this back on course. So this is sort of why you get these crazy swings in the market because people are looking for deals. People are looking for things that are undervalued. It's kind of like with the situation, say with housing, just for example, I think mortgage rates are down. I have it right here. I don't know if I have it in this article, but they're like at the lowest level for like 14 months or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's the mortgage rates have dropped quite a bit. And essentially the big problem right now is that there's just not enough inventory, right? So people are saying, oh, great, mortgage rates are down, but now there's nothing to buy. Oh, no. And, sort of talking about how there's deals out there, there's always people looking to buy something, right? And they're just waiting for the right price. And for those, who are in the housing market, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You essentially have a set figure that you can afford and a set figure that you're looking for and a certain, rooms and square footage size that you want. And once you hit that target, you're going to scoop that up. So that's sort of how these things work, right? It goes in cycles. Things don't drop like to zero. It just doesn't work that way. And I know like it feels like that way when we have this recession talk and these kind of things. It's just more like things are slowing, the liquidity isn't there. Moreover, you have this. This was an interesting one. Pressures mounting on Warner Brothers Discover CEO David Zaslav to deliver value to shareholders. And that's the same example as I was saying with like the private equity firms that are looking, for deals and things to drop low enough to where they can swoop in and, buy up some assets for cheap. If you're a CEO at a company and your company's underperforming, I think we talked about that. It was like they had a $9 billion, so Warner Brothers had like a $9 billion write-off or something crazy like that. And so now it was interesting that there was this headline because I guess he's one of the highest paid CEOs in the country. It's like $50 million a year he gets or something of that nature. And he's under pressure, right? So we just talked about yesterday with the Zillow CEO step down. This is the kind of pressures that you face when you're, running publicly traded companies. Shareholders, right, want results. You're like ticked off if your stock goes down, right? I completely understand. Trust me, I really know. And you're just like, and that's why it's funny to always talk about the Elon Musk situation, because in his situation, he's with a board of directors that are completely in his pocket. Normally you would have fired someone like him by now. He's a loose cannon, which is a big contrast compared to something like, you literally put out an article, leaked to the press that, we got your eyes on you, Warner Brothers CEO. So we'll see if he stays around much longer. But that's kind of an interesting one. And also too, people always ask me like, what are opportunities in the market? And so, what things I like. This is an interesting one. I'll read the headline here. Eli Lilly raises outlook on bumper sales of diabetes and weight loss drugs. And this is a tricky one to talk about, okay? So I'll just be frank with you. I don't think Americans are going to lose weight anytime soon. And I think Americans are going to continue to have health problems, okay? And it's not just an American issue. It's spreading. Just people are eating unhealthy food. It is what it is. And because of that particular situation, I think weight loss drugs, right, diabetes stuff, that's probably going to be a massive market going into the future. And I know it's kind of awkward conversation to have, but it's just the reality of it, right? And, I was thinking about the movie, if you guys know the movie WALL-E, that there's sort of the image that they paint of humans going forward in the future is that we're all going to be sitting on like these moving couches and essentially drinking, Gatorade or Coca-Cola and getting really fat and not exercising at all. And, when you see like, oh my God, these companies that sell that weight loss drugs are making tons of money, et cetera. Yes, I think there'll be opportunity in that, but I also want you to be thinking about how don't get sucked up into the living standards and the living quality of your average person, the same way that the average person has too much credit card debt or the average person, gets scammed. I was just thinking about this, like, I don't know how or why exactly this week, but I had an unusual amount of sort of scammy spam. I found out that I had, essentially a long lost cousin in Nigeria, that kind of stuff. Please send him Bitcoin. I found out that someone has access to my bank account number, and if I don't send them Bitcoin, they're going to hack me some more, that kind of stuff. Like literally, I got like a bunch of that kind of email this week. But some people actually fall for that stuff. But and I'm liking that to the same way that, unfortunately, and this is just how it is, say in the U.S., guys that used to live there, some people fall for the marketing of fast food and other kinds of things. Like, guys, I really know. I used to live there. It's like you're constantly bombarded with unhealthy lifestyle options. And I'll just say this. Don't be average, right? The average person gets stuck in that stuff and gets addicted to it. And it takes a long time to break out of those kind of addictions. It becomes habit forming, eat that stuff. And so, from an investor point of view, you're going to say, okay, invest in McDonald's because, just for example, that no one's going to stop eating at McDonald's or go to Chipotle. I mean, that's why Chipotle stock's been doing well. It's like people, get to that kind of stuff. And because of said things, therefore, weight loss drugs are going to be a thing. So anyway, they're making money there. Just had to share that. And then the other one is, read the headline here, Trump-Harris agree to September 10th debate on ABC, 2 more dates in the works. So they were fighting over like, when are they going to debate, how many debates they're going to have, etc. Trump did like a press conference thing at his Mar-a-Lago. He's still crazy. I watched a little bit of it. I'll just give you an example, because sometimes people say, Chris, what do you mean he's crazy? It's like, if you've ever seen Trump speak, he speaks like Trump. But basically this time around, he was saying that he gave a speech in DC, and his crowd sizes were bigger than Martin Luther King's crowd sizes. And he really did reference Martin Luther King, comparing himself to him. And it's like that kind of stuff. And then it just every day is some ludicrous thing that he says. But it's interesting because I read a fascinating report. He spoke, actually, it was the national, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's like the Black American reporters, or it's probably National African American Journalism Board or something like that. But he spoke there, and that was the one where he gave that really awkward interview questioning whether or not Kamala Harris was black. And you guys probably heard that in the headlines. I just mentioned that. But there was a fascinating report, though, from sort of behind the scenes. He was actually delayed going on stage in that thing. Why? Well, publicly, they told people he was having microphone issues. So that part was true, but they resolved it quickly, right? The thing that was really going on was the journalists on stage and sort of the moderator, you could say, wanted to fact check Trump on stage, and actually Trump didn't want to be fact checked. And so they weren't going to let him on stage if they couldn't fact check him. And so then they fought over that like for an hour, and then eventually did go on stage, and then basically said the crazy stuff they did, and they were able to check him. So there's that. And it's a tough situation to talk about the Trump stuff, because I say this so many times on the channel. Guys, if we want to talk about what to do about Social Security or minimum wage, or have honest discussions about our changing demographics or any number of things, and have intelligent conversations, I'm totally fine with that kind of stuff. But when you have people who just make stuff up, it's like we're not even talking about reality anymore, and it's kind of hard to have these discussions and arguments. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people already mentioned before in the channel where like the current state of the USA is like hard to talk to, whatever. Family members, people have said that in the comments, and guys, I totally know. But when I see the stuff that's written on, well, to say the Elon Musk platform, is like, oh my God, what are these people, what are these people talking about? What are these people smoking? It's like really hard. It's really hard to address, and I'll just say this, the kind of stuff to where they'll put whatever candidate's picture, and they'll put certain kind of hats on a certain candidate to say they're a certain kind of thing. And I'm just being broad about it, because that kind of discussion it's just not productive. And we're not even talking about reality anymore. And I'm sure you guys know exactly the stuff I'm talking about, and it's hard to have these discussions, but it does have real consequences. In the UK, the Elon Musk tweeting out the fake news and stuff like that, inspired violence and things, and that's no good. But I will say, and some people mentioned also, but the sort of communities and the police were able to just basically take the streets and say, hey, we outnumber you. And they've calmed the violence in the UK. So I've been feeling better about that. I know the last couple of years I've just been talking about the UK stuff. Because I do worry about our friends and brothers and sisters over in other countries around the world. So hopefully everything's going to stay calm. And then someone made a comment too as well regarding the UK thing, which I thought was funny. Just saying, the people who are doing the violence, just a bunch of hoodlums, and maybe they'll go back to fighting at the football games or rugby games when that season starts up next week. So let's hope so. Let's hope they get off the streets and quit instigating violence, and I guess just fight each other at the rugby game or whatever. So please do that. Anyway, that's what's going on in the markets, guys. I'd like to hear your thoughts on any one of these things, and I'll catch you all in the next video.